Welcome to the Briggs McDermott House, and I'm Margaret Wilson, known as Peg, and I volunteer to curate and document what is most of our costume collection. We have today on display very lovely examples of wedding dresses that we call belonging to Bourne Brides, so it's Bourne Brides event. The first example we have here in the entryway is an upscale high society wedding gown of Mary Ann Storms from her September 13th, 1836 marriage to Benjamin Ellis. It is white silk damask with floral designs in a fitted two-piece dress and a very tiny waist, also with accented by huge leg of mutton sleeves. The gown was fitting bridal attire for a daughter of a mariner and a South American adventurer, Captain Peter Storms of Bourne. She was actually married not too very far from this house. It has been donated to the Bourne Historical Society's permanent collection, and they have graciously loaned it to us. And we feel very grateful because it's unlikely that you ever get such early examples in such fine condition of a wedding dress of this period. The origin of this event came from the fact that we have so many beautiful textiles in the form of costumes in our collection. And it was June, and we were absent of an idea, so I said, let's do Bourne Brides, knowing that in our collection we had a variety of our own that represented several eras, and it was a good start. The eventuality of having to put a feeler out for other Bourne brides was a necessity. So, at any rate, my optimism was basically because I do so many estate sales, the one thing that is always salvaged in a hope chest or way back in the attic, aside from all the clothing that someone may have saved over the period of their history, the wedding gown would survive. Those opportunities are growing fewer and fewer, and because my connections are basically in Sagamore, I was overly optimistic that we would get many contributions from the era of brides from the war years, because I'm very familiar with the offspring of those mothers. Unfortunately, we didn't have as many, but we did manage to get a huge variety, and I was intent on getting different eras. So that worked out sufficiently well, and that's how we presented and planned the exhibit. It would be, each room would be devoted to a certain era, and that's how we prepared it. The parlor is devoted to Victorian wedding dresses, clearly designed to be a wedding dress. The first example here is a simple cotton wedding dress donated to our collection by the Peter Way family. Mrs. Way donated her husband's grandmother's wedding dress. They are a Bourne family, and this has been in our collection for a long, long time. It's very simple, washable. Its age was 1880s, not distinctly refined to a particular year in the 1880s, but nonetheless in that general period, and it has survived beautifully. is able to be laundered, and I think it is one of the most premium pieces we have in our collection that will stay in our collection. But this is part of our private collection. It is also from the late 1800s, somewhat fancier than the first that I described, and it is satin in its best form. The donor is unknown, and hoping that maybe someone will come in to view the collection and see their dress and let us know if they donated it and when they donated it, because I have no information. But as it is exquisite, pointing out that all these waistbands, these sized waists, are incredibly small. It's hard to give them female figures when we're preparing them. Again, same period. It is more or less a simpler form of a Victorian dress, 1880s. I'm going to say that this one was closer to the end of the 1800s and is of a cotton material with lots of shirring and not too many accoutrements on it. This was donated by our famous Joya from the Historical Society, and she salvaged it from some unknown family, and it has become part of our collection. An exceptionally small waist, I might add, but it's very dear. This is indeed a wedding dress. It is not atypical for this period. Lots of women did not get married in the traditional white. It is donated to our permanent collection by Dorothy Erickson, and it was her grandmother's, and we are still in the 1800s. This is documented in the very latest part of the 1800s. It is a silk plaid skirt, a jacket of light wool, I believe, and it is in excellent condition. And it's something to be noted about it is that the excess fabric was put into a quilt, and we also have the quilt. So this is our solitary example in the dining room. The material is late 1930s, but the wedding took place in 1941. And it is what they consider a cut velvet. This one seems to have a little elasticity to it, which is unique, but cut velvet was very popular through the ages, end of the 1700s even, into the early 1800s. A lot of it was made for carpets and all, and here we find that it is used in a wedding gown, but it is quite unique. It was loaned to us very gratefully from William Noyes, and again, it was part of William's family ancestry, so it was a wedding dress of someone that was known to the family and has been documented by them. This wedding dress was, again, gratefully loaned to us by William Noyes. Same history. It was somehow connected to his family ancestry, and I was probably most excited to prepare this one because this seemed to be the era that was hardest to find in terms of those that were salvaged. It is satin. The date is 1916, so the wedding dresses between the late 1800s and the earliest of 1900 and the years of World War I didn't seem to survive that easily. I was unhappy that we weren't finding more examples, so I was very grateful to have this one. And the unique part of it is it still has the original Celine's label in the waistband sewed inside. I'm sorry I don't have a photograph. I should have taken it, but it was a store-bought dress, It's got lots of details, little tags to pull up interior, so to pull the dress skirt up in certain places. So it's quite elaborate for 1916. It was not something that we dared to launder, so this is the original dress as it has been worn. So in this front room, we have all 1940s wedding dresses, all from the period of World War II. And if there are wedding dresses to have survived, they are mostly from this period. The first one is a typical satin mid-1940s dress worn by Jane de Gagny. It is in our permanent collection, and it was donated by a very close friend of the de Gagny family. We do not have specifics on the date of her wedding, but the style is very typical, and happily the veil survived. Again, similar style, maybe a little bit fancier. There is some beadwork in the bodice. It was loaned to us by the Consoni family. People in Bourne probably remember the name of Alex Consoni. This was worn by his bride, Olga Marchisio, and Olga had a sister named Alba, and Alba Marchisio, and they both picked out the dress together, and they both wore it for their weddings. Alba was married to Tello Tontini, and they have loaned us the dress. This was at the height of World War II, 1944. It was the wedding dress of Alba Anzalone, married to John Clinton. It's a very simple little dress, store-bought. It's netting or tulle over a taffeta skirt. And again, notice the tiny waists. These girls were so tiny. Another 1940s dress, unknown specifically, but it was of the Elizabethan style, very, very ornate, and the fabric is a flocking, which they used excessively in all kinds of products, bathrobes, everything. So this wedding dress was an example of that fabric. We don't have a specific date of the wedding, but it was worn by Barbara Keith, and it was donated by Barbara Keith, and it is part of our permanent collection. This dress is loaned to us by Aldebaran, and it has a very unique history. Somehow via her family, it was it ended up in the possession of Alda, and it is a bride from the Barnum family of the famous Barnum and Bailey Circus. Unfortunately, we do not have any specifics on it. However, it is a very simple A-line cotton dress that has been hand-stitched almost in a trapunto style, little crisscrosses and adorned with pieces of machine-made lace, and it's very typical of between the 30s, 40s, could even be the 50s. In this back bedroom, we have two examples of 1960 dresses. This one here is 1962. It is the wedding dress of Marie Ferretti and Chasely Friedrichsen, and it is very typical of the 1960s. It is a mixture of fabrics. There is a sheer over a rayon underskirt and a very decorative satin panel running from the bodice with all machine-made appliques. And happily, the veil has survived as well. it is loaned by the Ferretti family. This is getting into the later 60s. The style is changing. It is an A-line, very simple waistband, again, a taffeta back skirt and a sheer overlay with very lovely appliques on the bodice. It was the wedding of Margaret Tassinari and Edward McSherry. They got married in July of 1968, and happily the veil also survived. So we're down to the very latest dresses on display. This one is 1986. It is loaned to us by the Bailey family. It was Kim Bailey's wedding dress. It was very ornate, satin, puff sleeves, machine-made appliques, and an exquisite train that goes on forever. This is our latest example in the hallway here, and it is 1994. It is the wedding dress of one of our members, Lisa Gobileski, who does a lot of uses a lot of her talents in this organization, and she wanted it to be known that this came from the Folleen's basement wedding event extravaganza where you went berserk to find the right wedding dress. You had to go in with the team. It is a very unique design because there's a whole underdress so that the over part of it almost acts like a cape with a cowl neckline and extravagant beadwork all on the head of the bodice. The dress is of a satin. We've gone from the very latest of our wedding dress examples back to one of our earliest wedding examples, and it is very rare that we or anyone would get a dress of this age bracket in this condition. The dress is from 1792, and it was the wedding dress of Anna Poor to Captain Micaiah Inglis, and her father, Nathan Poor of Newburyport, was again in the maritime industry and was able to get this fabric as a result of his connections. It was most likely continental, more specifically English, and it is a beautiful blue brocaded silk with period lace trimmings on the sleeves. It is all hand-stitched. It is an accurate and rare example of a dress of the 18th century, both in style and construction, and is in incredible condition. It is museum quality, and we are very fortunate to have it loaned to us again by William Noyes. It is part of his ancestry. He has it documented, and the great-granddaughter of the bride, Anna Poor, wore it in a contemporary wedding for herself, and the Noyes family has photographs of that wedding in with the daughter, the great-granddaughter, wearing the dress again. So can't emphasize enough how rare this dress is and how grateful we were for the opportunity to display it.